It all started with a message that didn't mean much at first. A simple, "Hey, how are you?" sent late at night. The kind of message people scroll past without thinking twice. But for Bilal Aziz, that message came at a time when silence had become his closest companion. Bilal wasn't the type to open up easily. On the outside, he was composed, measured, confident. The kind of man who looked like he had everything figured out. But underneath that calm, he was lonely in a way only those who've been betrayed by life could understand. And then came Sheeta Sween. Bright, outspoken, full of laughter. A woman who could make a crowded room feel like home. They met online, through a network of friends who thought they'd get along. Sheeta had just moved into a new phase of her life, trying to balance ambition with heartbreak. She wanted something real, something safe, and Bilal, with his careful words and gentle humor, seemed exactly that. Their first video call lasted hours. They talked about everything: faith, family, childhood memories, what scared them most. Sheeta laughed in that disarming way she did, her eyes lighting up even through a screen. Bilal, usually reserved, found himself opening up to her like he hadn't done in years. By the end of that night, they weren't strangers anymore. The connection that felt destined. Within weeks, they were inseparable. Constant messages, midnight calls, morning check-ins. Sheeta would tease him for being too serious. He'd counter by saying she was too loud for her own good. But they balanced each other out. Bilal's world was structured, predictable. He planned every day down to the hour. Sheeta brought chaos, good chaos. She reminded him to laugh, to slow down, to live. And soon, they started talking about forever. When Bilal flew out to finally meet her, it felt like something out of a movie. The airport hug lasted longer than either of them expected. Cameras flashed. A friend filmed their reunion for social media. And within days, the clip went viral. Not because they were famous, but because their joy looked so pure. People commented things like, "This is what love looks like," and find someone who looks at you like Bilal looks at Sheeta. But love stories that shine too brightly often cast deep shadows. Two worlds. One promised Bilal came from structure, faith, and quiet discipline. Sheeta came from expression, color, and fire. Their worlds collided beautifully, but also dangerously. At first, the differences were charming. He liked how she spoke her mind. She loved how calm he stayed under pressure. But small cracks started forming in places neither noticed. Sheeta's friends said Bilal was too controlling. Bilal's family whispered that Sheeta was too outspoken. Still, they pushed forward. In an emotional video, months later, Bilal proposed. It wasn't extravagant, just candles, music, and his trembling voice as he asked her to share his life. She said yes, tears streaming down her face, promising him love through every storm. The internet loved them. Their story became one of those viral modern fairy tales. Two people from different worlds finding love against the odds. But what no one saw behind the filters and captions was how carefully Bilal hid his fears. He worried not about her, but about himself. He had built walls around his heart long before Sheeta came along. Walls that made him analyze every gesture, every word, every silence. He wanted to trust her completely, but a voice in the back of his mind whispered, "Don't be a fool again." And that voice was about to ruin everything. The little things that changed. Everything. Their marriage started beautifully. Sheeta decorated their home with laughter and late-night cooking sessions. Bilal filled it with structure. Bills paid on time, plans for the future, quiet evenings after work. But love is not made of grand gestures. It's made of small moments. And when those moments start breaking, everything else follows. Sheeta began noticing things. The way Bilal would glance at her phone when it buzzed. How he asked questions that didn't sound like questions, more like gentle interrogations. How he'd go silent after her live streams, pretending to scroll, but really listening for hidden meaning. She brushed it off at first. He's just protective, she told herself. But inside, she felt the walls closing in. One night after a long day, she asked, "Do you trust me?" He smiled. Of course, but she saw it. That flicker in his eyes. That hesitation. That was the night the seed of doubt was planted. The public becomes private. As they grew in fame, their lives became content. Every trip, every date, every disagreement, all turned into stories for followers who thought they knew them. But the internet never tells the full story. Behind every smiling picture was an argument never posted. Behind every "we're doing great" caption was a silence that lasted hours. Bilal felt the pressure of eyes watching him. Every comment saying, "Sheeta deserves better," cut deeper than he admitted. And Sheeta, tired of explaining herself, began pulling away. The story that had once inspired people started to fracture under its own weight. And then came the first real test. The one that would change everything. The letter she never sent one night. While Bilal was away for work, Sheeta sat alone at their kitchen table. The lights were dim. Her phone was silent. In front of her was a half-written letter. "Bilal," she began, "I don't know how to make you see me anymore. The version of me you love is disappearing. I'm not the girl in the videos. I'm tired of proving my loyalty every day. I'm tired of walking on eggshells. I love you, but love shouldn't feel like an exam." She folded the letter, tucked it away, and never sent it. Because despite the pain, she still hoped he'd come around. But fate had other plans. The silent distance weeks later, they attended a public event together, smiling for cameras, holding hands, pretending everything was perfect. But when the lights dimmed and the crowd thinned, they sat in silence. Sheeta looked at him, her heart heavy. "Do you ever feel like we're strangers?" she asked softly. Bilal looked at her, but didn't answer. Sometimes silence says more than words ever could. Foreshadowing the storm, it wasn't one big fight that broke them. It was 1,000 tiny moments, misunderstandings left unresolved, words swallowed instead of said. Until one day, Bilal found something that didn't make sense. A message, a name he didn't recognize, a photo that wasn't meant for him. He didn't ask her immediately. He waited, letting suspicion grow roots. And by the time he finally confronted her, the truth, whatever it was, didn't matter anymore. Because by then, trust was already gone, and love without trust is just memory. That was the night everything changed. The morning after that night, the air between them was heavy. No words, just the faint clink of spoons against coffee cups, and the hum of a refrigerator filling the silence that used to be laughter. Bilal sat at the table, scrolling through his phone, pretending to read emails. Sheeta moved around the kitchen, careful not to meet his eyes. They were two people sharing a space, but not a life. She felt the distance. He felt the doubt, and both of them were too proud to admit it. The message that started it all, wasn't even scandalous. It was from an old friend. Or at least, That's what Sheeta said. A simple, "It's been so long. Proud of how far you've come." But Bilal couldn't shake the feeling that there was more behind it. He told himself he was being paranoid. Still, that night, he opened her social feed and scrolled farther than he ever had before, past the comments, past the captions, into the old days, the ones before him, and there it was. The same name, the same man who had commented on her photos years ago with inside jokes and heart emojis. Bilal's chest tightened. It wasn't jealousy exactly. It was fear. Fear that the woman he loved had a life he didn't fully understand. That maybe he'd fallen for a version of her that only existed for him. He closed the app, turned off his phone, and told himself he trusted her. But trust doesn't erase screenshots. Sheeta's smile. Sheeta noticed the shift before he said a word. He was present, but distant. Kind, but mechanical. He still said, "I love you." But it sounded like punctuation, not passion. When she reached for his hand at night, he'd hold it, but not tightly. When she laughed, he'd smile, but not with his eyes. And that's when she realized something inside him had changed. She tried to fix it. She cooked his favorite meals, planned weekend trips, even pulled him into silly TikToks, hoping the laughter would bring him back. But the camera caught something she didn't. The way his smile never reached his heart anymore. Their followers noticed it too. Comments started rolling in. "Why does Bilal look tired?" "Sheeta's energy feels off." "They don't seem the same anymore." They laughed it off publicly, but privately, it stung. The confrontation that never happened one evening. Sheeta found his phone unlocked on the counter. A chat window was open. Not with a person, but with himself. Notes, screenshots, timestamps. He was keeping track of things. Her heart sank. She waited for him to come home. When he walked in, tired from work, she looked at him and said quietly, "You could have just asked me." He froze, then sighed, rubbing his forehead. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it, Bilal?" He hesitated. "I just needed to make sense of things." That message, it was nothing. She snapped, voice trembling. "A friend from years ago, that's all." He nodded slowly, not meeting her eyes. And that was worse than anger, because silence feels colder than shouting ever could. That night, they slept in the same bed, but on opposite sides, separated by inches and 1,000 unspoken words. The world watching. The next morning, a gossip page posted a blurry photo of them leaving a cafe, Bilal walking ahead, Sheeta behind, her eyes downcast. The caption read, "Are Sheeta and Bilal in trouble?" It spread fast. YouTube channels picked it up. TikTok edits showed their happiest clips with sad music. Fans debated in comments like it was a sport. And the irony was, the more people speculated, the more they performed. They posted new pictures together, forced smiles, cheerful captions. Sheeta and Bilal stronger than ever. She wrote, "Don't believe everything you see," he added. But behind the hashtags and emojis, something fragile was breaking. The dinner. A few nights later, they went out for dinner at a quiet rooftop restaurant. It was supposed to be a reset, a chance to talk, to reconnect. The city lights shimmered. The waiter poured wine. For a moment, it felt almost normal again. Then Sheeta's phone buzzed. She glanced at it. Her expression changed, just slightly. But Bilal noticed. "Who's that?" he asked, his voice calm but sharp. "Just a notification," she said, locking the screen. He reached out his hand. "Can I see?" "Bilal," she sighed. "Please don't do this." And that was it. The air went cold. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He just leaned back and said quietly, "If you have to hide it, it's already over." She stared at him, eyes glassy. "You think the worst of me, no matter what I do, because I've seen what happens when people pretend everything's fine," he said softly. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about his past, his scars, the ghosts of promises broken long before she ever arrived. They left without dessert. The diary a few days later. While cleaning the living room, Bilal found a notebook under the couch cushion. It was Sheeta's journal. He didn't mean to open it, but one page caught his eye. A folded note tucked inside. He unfolded it slowly. It was dated months earlier. "Sometimes," she had written, "I feel like I'm fighting for a man who's already decided I'll lose. He says he trusts me, but every question feels like a test. I'm tired of being guilty for loving loudly. I wish he could see I'm still here, just waiting for him to believe in me again." His throat tightened. For the first time, he saw her pain in her own handwriting. He closed the journal, sat there in silence, and for a fleeting moment, guilt replaced suspicion. He thought about apologizing, about telling her he was wrong. But before he could, fate intervened again. The call that evening, Sheeta was on a live stream when her phone buzzed. A call flashed across the screen. A man's name. Bilal saw it from across the room. She ended the stream abruptly, fumbling to silence the call. But it was too late. He stood up slowly. "Him again? Bilal, you said you stopped talking." "I did. That was—" He raised a hand. "Please don't lie to me." Her voice cracked. "You don't understand. It's not what you think." But in that moment, he wasn't listening anymore. He was replaying every doubt, every warning, every whisper that told him she'd betray him. He didn't shout. He didn't accuse. He just walked out, and that silence broke her in ways words never could. The aftermath, the next morning, the news broke. Bilal and Sheeta unfollow each other on Instagram. Trouble in paradise. Fans worried after Sheeta's emotional live. The comments were ruthless. People picked sides. Some blamed him for being controlling. Others called her unfaithful. And while strangers debated their love story, the two people at its center sat in separate rooms, staring at their phones, wondering how it had all fallen apart so fast. Sheeta cried quietly into her pillow. Bilal stared at the ceiling, numb. Neither of them knew what the truth was anymore, only that whatever they had built was now breaking under the weight of too many lies, too many eyes, and too little faith, foreshadowing the 4 weeks past. They tried to talk, to fix things, but every conversation turned into an argument. Every attempt at peace reopened old wounds. Bilal wanted proof of loyalty. Sheeta wanted peace of mind. Neither realized that both were fighting for the same thing, reassurance. One night, she whispered, "I can't keep proving myself to someone who's already made up his mind." He said nothing, because deep down, he feared she was right, and yet he couldn't let go. Love kept him there. Fear kept him silent, and destiny kept watching. Because the truth, the one that would destroy everything, hadn't even surfaced yet, and when it did, it would be too late to undo. There are moments in life that change everything. Not with a scream, not with a fight, but with quiet realization. For Bilal Haziz, that moment came on a rainy Thursday afternoon. He was sitting in his car, engine off, staring at the windshield as raindrops crawled down like tiny tears. He wasn't sure how long he'd been there, His phone buzzed beside him. A new message from a number he didn't recognize. It was short. Bilal, you deserve to know the truth. Ask her about Malik. He read it twice. His chest tightened. Malik. The same name from those old comments. The same name from that call. He didn't respond. He didn't even breathe for a moment. He just sat there, feeling the ground shift beneath him. Then, slowly, he started the car and went home. The discovery? When he got back, the house was silent. Sheeta was in her studio, editing a video. Music played softly in the background. Upbeat, like nothing was wrong. Bilal stood at the door, watching her for a moment. She looked peaceful, beautiful, familiar, and that made it worse. Sheeta, he said quietly. She turned, surprised but smiling. Hey, you're home early. He didn't smile back. Who's Malik? Her hands froze on the keyboard. The air changed. She swallowed hard. Why are you asking? I got a message, he said evenly. Someone thinks I should know about him. She looked down, her voice low. Bilal, it's not what you think. That's exactly what you said last time. I'm serious. Malik was a friend. Before you. I haven't seen him in years. He studied her face. The flicker in her eyes. The tension in her jaw. He wanted to believe her. God, he wanted to. But that message, that call, that hesitation, it all tangled into one heavy truth he couldn't ignore. So why is someone texting me now? He asked. Why would anyone reach out unless there's something to tell? She didn't answer. She just stared at the floor. And silence once again spoke louder than words. The fight. The argument that followed wasn't loud, but it was brutal. Sheeta pleaded, her voice cracking. You're punishing me for ghosts. You see betrayal in everything I do. He clenched his fists, trying to stay calm. Because you keep giving me reasons to doubt you. I'm not hiding anything. Then prove it. She pulled her phone from her pocket and tossed it on the table. Here, look, read every message, every contact, every call. I have nothing to hide. He stared at it, then pushed it back toward her. If I have to look, it's already over. Her voice broke. Then maybe it is. And just like that, love turned into anger, anger into silence, and silence into regret. The video days later, while they avoided each other under the same roof, the internet did what it always does. It found something. A clip surfaced online. Sheeta and Malik, from years ago, laughing together in a music video shoot. The chemistry was undeniable. Fans reposted it, editing it with captions like, "Was this more than friendship?" And, "Did Bilal know?" The video spread fast. By morning, it was everywhere. Sheeta woke up to hundreds of notifications. Home wrecker. Poor Bilal. Caught in 4K. She sat on the edge of the bed, shaking, tears burning in her eyes. Bilal walked in holding his phone. He didn't say anything, just showed her the clip. Her voice trembled. "That was before you. I know," he said. "But tell that to everyone else." He wasn't angry this time, just tired. And somehow that hurt more, the apology that came too late. That evening, Sheeta posted a video. No makeup, no music, just her, speaking straight to the camera. "I know there are rumors about me," she began softly. "About a man named Malik. Yes, we worked together a long time ago. Yes, we were close, but it ended before Bilal and I even met. I made mistakes in my past, but I've been honest about them. What hurts most is that the person I love doesn't believe me anymore." Her voice cracked. "To my followers, please stop sending hate. To Bilal, I never lied to you." She ended the video there. The comments section exploded. Some defended her, others tore her apart, but all Bilal saw was the pain in her eyes. Pain he had helped create. He wanted to call her, to hold her, to say, "I believe you," but his pride wouldn't let him. Instead, he sat in his car again, the same spot as before, and watched her video over and over until his phone battery died. The friend a week later, Bilal met with an old friend, Kareem, someone who had seen their story from the sidelines. Over coffee, Kareem said gently, "You know, sometimes love doesn't die from lies. It dies from doubt." Bilal looked up, weary. What if the doubt is justified? Kareem shrugged. Then you face it. You talk. You forgive. You don't keep building walls and expect her to find the door. That hit him hard. Because deep down, he knew Kareem was right. The truth in plain sight that night. Bilal went home and opened Sheeta's old camera bag. She wasn't there. She'd gone to visit her sister. Inside, he found memory cards from years ago. He loaded one onto his laptop. Dozens of clips. Behind-the-scenes moments. Laughter, bloopers. Sheeta and Malik goofing around on set. Nothing intimate, nothing scandalous. Just two young artists working, trying to make something meaningful. He sat there, staring at the screen he'd spent months torturing himself over something that was never even real. The truth had been sitting there all along, waiting for him to look past his fear. He felt sick. He'd accused, doubted, and destroyed the one person who had stood by him when everyone else left. The call that changed everything. He called her. No answer. He called again. Still nothing. Finally, he sent a voice message. His voice was shaky, quiet. "Sheeta, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I found the footage. I saw everything. You didn't lie to me. You didn't deserve any of this. Please call me back." Minutes turned into hours. Then, a notification. One new message. But it wasn't from her. It was from her sister. "Sheeta's been in an accident." Bilal froze. His heart dropped. He called immediately, panic rising in his chest. Her sister's voice on the other end was trembling. "She's okay, Bilal, but she's shaken." She was driving back home from the studio when someone recognized her and followed her car, yelling things. She swerved and hit a barrier. "She's in the hospital." He didn't even think. He just grabbed his keys and ran. The hospital. When he reached the hospital, cameras were already outside. Reporters shouting questions, fans whispering, phones filming. He pushed through the chaos and found her room. Sheeta lay there, a small bandage on her forehead, eyes half open. She looked up weakly when he entered. "Bilal," she whispered. He took her hand. "I'm here." Tears filled his eyes. "I'm so sorry for everything." She smiled faintly, her voice fragile. "You believed them more than me." "I know," he said, "and I'll regret it forever." She closed her eyes, exhausted. "You can't love someone if you don't trust them, Bilal." "I do now," he said softly. "I promise." She didn't respond. She just squeezed his hand once, then drifted into sleep. The story goes public. The next day, the news exploded. Sheeta Sween, hospitalized after car accident. Bilal rushes to her side. Fans demand apology after viral rumors. Suddenly, the same people who'd mocked them were now defending them. The internet had moved from judgment to sympathy overnight, but for Bilal, none of that mattered. Because for the first time, he realized that fame had cost them something real: peace. The turning point over the next few days, he stayed by her side, He brought flowers, whispered prayers, and replayed every memory they'd shared. When she finally woke up strong enough to speak, she looked at him and said quietly, "Maybe we both need to heal." Separately, he shook his head. "Don't say that. We can fix this." She smiled sadly. "You can't fix what's already broken, Bilal. You can only learn from it." He wanted to argue, to beg her to stay, but deep down, he knew she was right. Sometimes love doesn't end with hate. Sometimes it ends with acceptance. The lie that was never a lie. Weeks later, the truth finally came out publicly. Malik himself posted a statement, confirming everything. "Sheeta and I were friends. Nothing more." Stop blaming her for something that never happened. It went viral again. But this time, people apologized. Hashtags shifted from hate to support. "We stand with Sheeta" trended for days, but the damage was already done because some truths, when revealed too late, can't heal the wounds they left behind. The weeks after the accident felt like a blur. The house was quiet again. Not because of tension, but because of absence. Sheeta had moved out, back to her sister's home. There were no angry words, no dramatic goodbyes. Just a note left on the kitchen counter. "Bilal, thank you for loving me the best way you knew how. But love without trust isn't peace. It's prison. Take care of yourself." He read it a dozen times. Each word cut deeper. The kitchen still smelled like her perfume. Her mug sat by the sink, half full from the morning she left. He couldn't bring himself to move it. The public apology. A month later, Bilal went live for the first time in weeks. No filters, no intro, no rehearsed lines. Just him, sitting in a dimly lit room, speaking from the heart. "I made mistakes," he said softly. "I let my fears ruin something beautiful. I didn't just lose a partner. I lost my best friend." He paused, eyes glistening. "I want to say this clearly. Sheeta didn't betray me. I betrayed her trust. She was honest. I wasn't strong enough to believe her, and because of that, I hurt her in ways she didn't deserve." The comments flooded in. Thousands of people watched as he admitted everything he had denied for months. Some wrote, "We respect your honesty." Others said, "It's too late, but at least you said it." And one comment, pinned by him, read, "Apologies don't rebuild broken hearts, but they start the healing." Sheeta's silence. Sheeta never responded publicly. Her followers begged for a statement, a reaction, a video, something. But she stayed quiet. She focused on her work, her health, her peace. Sometimes she'd post short clips. Her walking by the beach, a coffee cup by the window, a caption that read simply, "Growth is painful." People knew those words were about him. Even if she never said his name again, Bilal watched those clips in silence, smiling sadly. Because sometimes seeing someone heal without you is both the punishment and the lesson. The visit one evening, months later, Bilal drove to her sister's house. He didn't tell anyone. He just needed to see her one last time. Not to fix anything, just to close the chapter properly. She opened the door, surprised but calm. "Bilal," she said softly. "Sheeta," he replied, his voice unsteady. "I just wanted to say goodbye." The right way. They stood in the doorway, the air heavy with all the words they hadn't said. She motioned for him to sit. The house smelled like cinnamon and candles. He noticed the small details. Her new haircut, the bracelet he once gave her still on her wrist. I saw your video, she said finally. It was brave. He nodded. Too late though. She smiled faintly. Better late than never. He looked down. You deserved better. She reached across the table, touching his hand briefly. We both did. But maybe we weren't meant to finish this story together. He swallowed hard. Do you hate me? No, she said. I just don't recognize us anymore. There it was. The truth. Soft, but final. He nodded, stood up, and whispered, Thank you. When he walked away, she closed the door gently. No tears, no anger, just quiet acceptance. And sometimes that's harder than goodbye, the reflection. In the months that followed, Bilal rebuilt himself. Slowly, quietly. He stopped chasing perfection and started learning peace. He spent more time with family, picked up old hobbies, even volunteered at a local community center. But every time he heard her name, in passing, in a headline, in a conversation, something inside him still ached. Not out of bitterness, but out of memory, because she had been the one person who saw through his calm exterior and found the storm inside, and still chose to love him anyway. He often replayed her words in his mind. You can't love someone if you don't trust them. He finally understood. The reunion, a year later, fate crossed their paths again. At a charity event in Atlanta, Bilal was invited to speak about emotional health and relationships in the age of social media. As he stepped on stage, he spotted her in the crowd, Sheeta. Radiant, confident, at peace. She was there as a guest speaker for a separate panel. Their eyes met for the first time in a year. Time froze. After the event, he approached her. The noise of the crowd faded around them. Sheeta, he said softly. Bilal. They stood there for a moment, both smiling. Not out of love, but out of recognition, out of gratitude. You look happy, he said. I am, she replied. And you? Getting there. They laughed. A quiet shared laugh that didn't need translation. He said, I never stopped wishing you well. She nodded. That's enough. And for the first time, they walked away from each other. Not broken, not bitter, just free, the truth. Too late later that night, Bilal sat by his hotel window, city lights reflecting in his eyes. He thought about how easily one message, one fear, one unchecked doubt had unraveled their entire story. He whispered to himself, Love doesn't die when people stop caring. It dies when people stop believing. He smiled sadly, a tear slipping down his cheek. He had finally learned to let go, not because he stopped loving her, but because he finally understood that some truths are only revealed when you've already lost what they could have saved. That's the tragedy of realizing too late. And that was his truth. Epilogue. The story that still lives. Months later, a journalist wrote an article about them. Sheeta Sween and Bilal Haziz. The love story that taught us all something. The final line read, They didn't end up together, but they ended up better. And maybe that's what love is supposed to do. Fans still comment on their old videos sometimes. Some say, I miss them together. Others say, they grew apart, but they grew. And in quiet moments, when Sheeta posts a video with a soft smile and Bilal uploads a clip about self-reflection, both